everyone, welcome back to my garden. I thought after using my free time this week tidying up my beloved rose garden, it was a good time to give you a little tour. This has been a bit of an obsession of mine ever since I was a teenager, and my parents gave me a little plot of land to experiment with, and I tried in my own inexperienced way to start a rose garden back then. And I very much credit my gardening skills now with that freedom. I've learned a lot since then, and honestly, I could go back and show you that garden and explain some of my foundations. That would be a great gardening video for the future. But fast forward several years, and I've been privileged enough to get a home with a decent sized bit of land. Honestly, it was basically a blank canvas that I could work with. The previous owners weren't really, they weren't gardeners. And so I had a lot of space to spread my wings and work with. This patch here was initially an herb bed that just didn't work out due to the distance from my kitchen. So that was moved, and I determined through thinking about best plant, best place, in terms of sun. This is a very sunny area. I know there's clouds up there today. This is normally a very sunny area, something that roses enjoy, and there's a lot of space to spread out. My rose garden, when I first moved here, I just put them over there, and there's a pile of bricks left over from this project and what I'm hoping to turn into a cut flower garden. There are some roses over here that started in that area by the fence. Moved them this spring, so they're bouncing back, not as robust as they were last year, because even with the best of care, transplanting, it can be a bit of a shocker, especially for the root system. But everybody survived, and I'm taking that as a good sign. See, the sun's coming out. So the roses here very much like full sun. There are varieties of roses that can tolerate or thrive in partial shade. But these are my sunny roses. So last year, let me take you right in. Last year this started in early spring with this foundation work here. And I think most gardeners share the experience where they have an obsession and the means to bring it to life, and they will bring their partner with them. And even though my partner, my husband, is not an avid gardener, he very much supports gardening, and he enjoys the areas that we co-create. He often will handle parts like this, the building. Although I did help him with this, he used his very logical mind to figure out the dimensions that were needed, and then he has the tools, and so he cut that center square, and then I helped him spiral outward. So we wanted to stick with the bricks to keep it really basic and simple, but then kind of have the spiraling effect, because if you know me, spirals are, they are a primal holy symbol found within nature and throughout much of many cultures, and they're very significant to my own spirituality of Druidry. So this has become a sacred center of mine. Now, whenever you begin a garden, this is something I've learned, and this is part of why my initial attempts at gardening as a teenager were not always, they didn't come to full fruition. You have to have a very clear focus. It's not just, oh, I want a rose garden. You really want to think about overall function of that garden. And by that, I mean, is this meant to be a place where you can gather, where you can sit? Is this just going to be a beautiful focal point? Is it going to be an herbal garden? Is it a combination? Mine is definitely a combination of those. It's not an area that's tucked off in the corner. It's meant to be a gathering space, an intimate little area between friends. My daughter and I, we like to come up here and sit. I like to come up here and sit, especially during full moons. This place is wonderful to just sit in solitude. And then it also has just that beauty. It's definitely the centerpiece of the backyard, of the upper backyard, I should say, because our vegetable garden is very prominent down by the kitchen. And my ultimate goals are to work with some of these varieties in herbal projects once they get more established. Until their roots are established and they have a lot more growth, right now the priority is to just let them get adjusted. So with that, let me show you some of the roses. Now, not everybody is blooming, and that's part of what I like about this garden, is that there's always something blooming here from June to basically the first frost. To me, growing up, my mother had a couple roses, goodness, present tense. And, but I don't live there anymore, I guess is what I'm trying to say. And the rose always bloomed in June. And to me, that was one of the first times that I really started to notice the clockwork of nature. I could anticipate the seasons based on nature. And when that rose bloomed in June, that was always a sign of summer. And certain roses, they will bloom just in a particular time. I do have some roses that only bloom in June, but then I have others that bloom all season. I was not the best record keeper when I first started adopting roses. And now that I've moved them, I'm kind of kicking myself for not keeping better track. So some of these, like this beautiful coral rose, I cannot tell you what this is called, and I'm really bummed about that. It's a favorite of mine. It's one of those that only tends to blossom around this time of year. I've added some other plants to fill out the space, especially as, like, here's an apothecary rose. I planted this apothecary rose last year. It will eventually spread out into a shrub, but for now it's very small. It's definitely bigger than last year. This is one of those roses planted with the intention of herbalism. I definitely want to work with this rose to harvest petals, make rose water, rose essence, and then one day hopefully get some rose hips for that vitamin C and to put in some tea. But until then, I have planted my dahlias here. These are a beautiful burgundy dahlia. They were given to me by Steve, a dear friend of mine, and the Druid group. He lives at the yoga center. He's their caretaker. And you know, plants, they have a tendency to reproduce, and you know, he had an overabundance of their bulbs, or not bulbs really, but their roots. He gave me a bunch, and these were in the front yard, but they didn't get as much sun, and I thought putting them back here to bring out that rich burgundy among the roses would be perfect. So eventually this apothecary will expand, and these dahlias that are surrounding it right now probably will go somewhere else. You can see some other plants that I've filled in for now, like the strawberries. The chipmunks haven't realized they're here yet, and so I'm enjoying. Tomorrow is August. Tomorrow's Lunasa, and I am able to harvest some strawberries now, which is quite a surprise. So, yay, rosebud strawberries. Another recent addition to the rose garden. Some junipers. These will add height and structure to the back. More climbers. Another transplant that I can't remember. I have a garden diagram, a map of sorts, and while I kept track that this is a climber and very much knew I wanted to add it to the pillar back here, I don't know what it's called. I can't remember. We have Flora, Roman goddess of gardens, and flowers, a great spot for her. Now this rose right here, this I do know. Unfortunately, she's not blooming right now. This is another climber, a night owl rose, and her blossoms are a deep purple, and I absolutely love them. These are both transplants, and they have come back tremendously. They grow very, very tall. Another juniper, you can see the dragon. Another apothecary rose, and again, space for her to spread right out. I think this is the Alexander McKenzie rose. Yeah. In my garden diagram, that's what I labeled that as. Right here is a knockout rose. This is one of the most prolific. She doesn't look like much right now, and again, she's a transplant, and last year she filled out quite a bit. She's a little shrub bush variety of rose. She perpetually blooms. She truly is a knockout. Highly recommend this variety. Bird bath. Right here, so my mother knows I love roses, and she'll occasionally give me some, and I don't always know what they are because garden centers, or rather stores that don't have garden centers, like I'm thinking drugstores. You know how sometimes they'll have flowers, roses, those whole root plants bound up in like plastic bags. It just says rose. And then my mother got me one as a Mother's Day gift, and it's a fairy variety, I believe, one of the tiny ones. And so I put it here on the edge, and hopefully that it won't get very big. If not, I'll move her. Oh yeah, so these roses that I planted here to climb up the arbor, these are Carefree. These are from Heirloom Roses, and I'm very excited about these, with the hopes that they will eventually, probably with a little bit of support, climb up the arbor. Just like the roses in the back, they'll hopefully go higher and higher up the obelisk. You can see there's obelisks in the cemetery, and so when I saw this obelisk at a garden center, a local greenhouse, I had to have it. Squeezed it into my little car. But one of the gardening principles I've learned over the years is the whole concept of borrowing from the landscape. And I have a cemetery as a back neighbor, and I very much wanted to draw the eye back towards the obelisk with the roses climbing up it, and then it draws your eyes further back, and it's just taken this whole beautiful space. Coming back in, I have, again, this is another heirloom rose right here. This is a Viking queen. She's brand new, but she's already putting out quite a bit of growth, and another climber, so hopefully she'll climb up here with the clematis, who I hope will survive the winter and add more growth. This is another heirloom rose, New Dawn. I'm trying to figure out where I want to put her. I think she's gonna go somewhere in the back, so your eye will be drawn back to those obelisks, and hopefully there'll be some roses back there. So yeah, I am starting to expand from my little rose garden space. It will probably widen over the years. I gotta give the apothecary roses time to fill out and whatnot, but I can see it getting even bigger. Don't mind my lawn. We haven't mowed very much between all the heat and the rain. Over here is a rambling rose. This is another heirloom rose, Darlow's Enigma, and I planted this beauty last year, and she's already spreading out, spreading up. Beautiful tiny little blossoms. So yeah, my rose garden is the centerpiece, but it's also spreading out, and I can have different rosy patches. And I think that's a cool thing. I'm not limited to one section. My theme, I guess, or I don't know if that's the right word, but my love of roses is starting to fill other areas. Like I recently purchased a shrub variety called Torres Bagné from Heirloom Roses, and those will come and they will fill in some areas in the front. I needed some height and some shrubs, and again, I want that color pop, that pink. So I'm very excited for my love of roses to show up in other areas, and that will be a partly sunny area. It'll be perfect for the Torres Bagné. So yeah, this is my rose garden, ever a work in progress. 2022, pretty good, looking beautiful. Quite amazing considering this was just a hole in the ground April last year. So yay. And hopefully I'll do another update on this garden in a year or two, and we'll see how it's evolved. Keep gardening, keep making your garden dreams come true. Happy Lunasa. Bye.